Welcome back. China continues to taunt and test the new administration and the world, sending 15 fighter jets into Taiwanese airspace. The United States State Department calling the intimidation tactic concerning. This move coming as President Xi Jinping is threatening a, quote, new Cold War against any nation that would stand up to Communist China and issuing sanctions on those who have pushed back. Joining me right now is John Ratcliffe. He is the former director of national intelligence. He has seen all of the intelligence, in fact, the most intelligence than anyone except for the sitting president. John Ratcliffe, it is wonderful to see you tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Before we get into China, I really want to get your take on what we just saw. One of the elements of this impeachment would mean removing any security that President Trump has. Is that right?
It would. I tell you, the whole exercise, though, Maria, is silly. President Trump has now been subjected to 2 impeachments. In neither one of them did he have due process. If you remember, in the first impeachment, he was deprived of lawyers for the first 71 of 76 days. You know, fundamental premise of our judicial system is due process. It's a fairness principle, and he was deprived of it. It was even worse this time. It was a 2-day proceeding. There was no investigation and no hearings, and so you have that issue. And then secondly, it's just really a farce. There's no constitutional basis to move forward with a trial against a private citizen, which is what Donald Trump is. So there are so many ways that, as your prior guests pointed out, this is purely a political exercise at this point. It's certainly not helpful to the American people. It's disrespectful to the office of the presidency. I wish it wasn't happening.
Director, I want to get into China and whether or not you believe that the Biden administration will be softer on China. The Trump administration obviously was the toughest on China in terms of pushing back with sanctions, with prosecutions, with tariffs. Do you believe Joe Biden will pull back?
Well, Maria, you talked about some of the things that China did just this week. And I think it shows that China's testing the Obama administration. What I will say is, both publicly, what China is saying, and privately, what the intelligence showed us post-election is that China's happy that Joe Biden is president of the United States. It's what they wanted. And they sense weakness. And I don't mean that as an insult to President Biden, but China saw weakness from the Obama-Biden administration. And as you pointed out, it wasn't until the last 4 years of the Trump administration that someone stood up to a rising China with different policies and sanctions to hold them accountable in the world marketplace. But China wants to see if it's going to go back to business as usual as it was under the Obama-Biden administration. Will the Biden-Harris administration be the same? And so what you're seeing is they're testing to see whether or not the Biden administration will stand up to China. And what's important, Maria, is your point about the intelligence. No one has seen more intelligence in the last year than I have. And what the intelligence tells us is that China, and China alone, is our greatest national security threat. And it's where the Biden administration should be placing our greatest emphasis with regard to our national security policies and concerns. So the question is, will they? I watched a Real Haynes confirmation hearing, and there was some tough rhetoric on China, which was good. But rhetoric's got to translate into action, and we'll see if that happens. That hasn't been the history with Joe Biden. Let's hope that changes, because, Maria, this is not a political issue. This is about national security. And if the Biden administration fails, we all fail and suffer as a result of that by not taking China seriously.
And we know that China has stated its goals and ambitions very clearly. It wants to become the #1 superpower, overtaking the United States in that regard, not just economically, but militarily. Now, the Trump administration has pushed back on investors who help to fund China's expansion by banning investment into Chinese companies that are tied to the military. I want you to listen to Jen Psaki, the press person for President Biden, and what she said about what they're doing right now in terms of delisted Chinese companies on the New York exchanges, as well as the potential for investment into these companies. Listen to this.
There are a number of reviews, complex reviews, interagency reviews, I should say, that we're going to undertake a range of regulatory actions and a range of relationships with companies as it relates to Chinese investment and other issues as well. Those complex reviews are just starting. We're starting from an approach of patience as it relates to our relationship with China.
So they're going to review it. John, what do you think?
Well, I can just tell you that what Jen Psaki said is entirely inconsistent with what the intelligence shows. The intelligence doesn't say we should have patience with respect to China. It says that we should act with respect to China. The policies that were based on that intelligence in the Trump administration should be followed. And, I increased our spending on China from an intelligence collection standpoint in the intelligence community budget by 20%. That ought to increase even more going forward. And what I'm hearing are signs that maybe we'll back off, that, we want better relations with China. And the path of appeasement is the road to nowhere when it comes to China. Give them an inch, they'll take a mile. That's how they became our #1 adversary, and that's how they'll supplant us as a world superpower.
What do you think corporate America needs to understand about this subject? Because right now, as we speak, there are several companies that are gearing up to own and operate their own business in China. JP Morgan has gotten a license to do so. Goldman Sachs has gotten a license to do so. Meanwhile, we just, for the first time in several months, saw Jack Ma, the founder and builder of Alibaba and the Ant Group. He made the mistake of saying a critical comment about Xi Jinping's regulatory environment for financial services, and like that, his Ant Group IPO was pulled, and he disappeared for 2 months. This is an important message, I think, for corporates who are about to go to China. I mean, I would say it's probably unheard of that you can actually build a business and make it very big and expect to keep it. Jack Ma learned that lesson.
Yeah, I mean, what we've seen is that, China sets up the laws to help China and not to help the businesses that are there. And I get that it's a global marketplace, and I'm not saying that you can't do business in China. But what we've seen, is some of our own investment banks basically betting on China and placing, financial success in China over our own national security. And China knows that they know that they can use American businesses as a means to gain intelligence against the American people and our national security posture. So, again, it's something I think that we need to be more aggressive and learn from the lessons of the past about how China will change the law to their benefit, punish those that speak out against the government there. And, China is not our friend in business or in any other enterprise.
A word on the cabinet that Joe Biden is putting together and whether or not there are China appeasers there. Susan Rice has been named his head of domestic policy. John, your reaction, given all of the work that you did in terms of exposing Crossfire Hurricane and exposing this effort to take down Donald Trump and then a sitting president, Donald Trump, Susan Rice back in business at the White House.
Well, I'm troubled by a lot of folks that are apparently being considered, and some that have already been placed into the Biden administration. Because you correctly point out there, Maria, some of those individuals were involved in taking, for instance, intelligence that we had, which showed that there was no Russian collusion, and turning it into a fake Russian collusion narrative for political purposes, weaponizing the intelligence that we had in the intelligence community for political purposes and for political gain. And to see those folks that did that now return to the fold in the Biden administration just leads me to believe that it's going to happen again, that it's all about accumulating and keeping power and making America's national security subservient to that. We suffered as a result of those actions before, and we will again.
John, before you go, your last act as the Director of National Intelligence was to add the U.S. Space Force to the Intel Community Assessment. Why did you do that? Very interesting.
Yeah, I think time will tell that, that's going to be probably the greatest contribution to the intelligence community and to our national security posture going forward. You always want to have the high ground against your adversaries. There's no higher ground than space. We have no near-peer competitor. Right now, China and Russia can't compete with us in space, and we have intelligence collection streams that we can get that other countries don't have, and so, you know, really important. I was very grateful that President Trump and Vice President Pence were supportive and empowered me to get that done. America will be better and safer in the long run because of it.
Really interesting. John Ratcliffe, it's great to see you tonight. Thanks so much.
You too. Thanks, Maria.